Okay, we just wanted to talk real quick today about the feasibility of making a trail or enduro or not so serious motocross bike into a vintage MX racer, because that's what we do at Buscadero. So the quick story is, when I was a teenager back in the 80s, I loved moto. It was my thing. It freaked me out. But I was also a four-stroke spaz. I loved four-strokes, and four-strokes weren't cool back then. So my options were very limited. And as a teenager, as a high school kid, modified that thing and made myself a race bike. They made me race in the 250 class, because in those days, it was over 125, so I couldn't be in the smaller class. Anyway, had a good time on that, racing that bike in the early 80s. That was where we kind of came up with the idea for Buscadero motorcycles. So we're now taking the XRs and other trail bikes, but mostly XRs, and turning them into vintage moto bikes. Really having a good time with it too. So that is a viable idea. It's a great idea, because you're getting a bike that you really like and you're making it work for a hobby that is really fun. So the bike we want to talk about is not this one. This is our 1981 XR 500. This is our current race bike right now. The bike that I want to talk about was a 1983 XR 350. It was a piece. It was a train wreck. But I picked that as a project. It's a great bike. It's like a muscular 250. It's quite light, powerful. And the goals when you do this to a trail bike are very simple. Make it lighter, make it a little more powerful, get the suspension right, and get the look right. And that's all the fun part. To make it lighter is very simple. You're going to strip everything down that's unnecessary. Headlights, blinkers, taillights, stock exhaust systems are huge, restrictive, gigantic, heavy things on most factory bikes. You're going to take everything off that's unnecessary, guards and plates and tabs and things that you don't need. You lose a lot of weight doing all that. To make it more powerful is a whole nother situation. We're strong believers in that the bike should be actually more reliable than powerful. We like to have a great race season and not be tinkering and messing with motors. We don't want our engines to run hot or blow up. So we're very careful how we modify them. One of the main things I do to these bikes is put a less restrictive intake and a very free-breathing exhaust. And that alone really helps these XRs run like champions. You can do a lot. You can do stroking and overboring and valve springs and cam and all kinds of stuff. We're very careful about that. We like these bikes to run very, very reliably and cool. But the simple thing that I talked about removing a restrictive exhaust, that's a big deal. Putting a free-breathing or intake and a free-breathing exhaust, that really wakes these motors up. To get the suspension right is something that's kind of touchy, and you may need help if you're not an experienced builder. I had custom springs built for the bike that we're talking about, fork springs, and a little bit of help in the valving. And then we had a custom shock built for it as well. That's not necessary. But you can get the suspension right. You're usually going to need a little help with that. And to get the look right, that's where the fun part comes in. And we'll talk more about that in future videos of where to source tanks and fenders and what fits what. But for now, briefly, you can usually use the seat that the bike came with. We often modify the seat right here to get the little lip off the tank. Get help with an upholstery shop. They can do a new cover for you. That XR 350 ran 1986 Yamaha fenders. They're in white, just like this one. So getting those things sourced and picking the right stuff is a lot of fun. So without getting into too much detail, the idea is, yeah, you can make a really fun vintage motocross bike out of a trail bike. And we'll look at some future videos for better details on how to do that.